Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Travel Mole broadcast. And I'm delighted today to have Ceri from Consensio Chalets. Ceri's based in Jersey, but her products are all based all around Europe. And we're going to talk to you. Good morning, Ceri.
Morning, lovely to be here.
Ceri, tell me a little bit more about Consensio Chalets and what is it, basically?
So basically, we're a sales and management company helping private owners look after their property, primarily ski in the French Alps, although we have just taken on our first in Switzerland, helping them manage them, looking after them when they're in situ, and then looking after the guests when they come on holiday. All the properties are at a very high end, and we try and provide a bespoke service, so tailored to each guest's requirements.
How would anybody find Consensio? Would they just search on the web, or is it word of mouth? What's the story there?
So, I mean, anyone that can find us, Google's a wonderful thing. We are there under Consensio Chalets and also under each chalet name. But word of mouth is a big factor of finding clients for us. But however, we have clients from all over the world. So they really do. The internet is a source of all of our clients. We only have about 40 to 50% coming from the UK.
And how many properties do you look after?
So we look after 16 properties, winter properties, and then one summer. They range. We have 3 different products in the wintertime. So we have our Ultimate Collection, which are the really big, crazy chalets with pools and spas. We have a relaxed portfolio we launched recently in the last year was the first year. But the smaller properties, they're still beautiful, and they'll have a spa, but they're under 400 meters squared, so they could be run by fewer staff. And then we have self-catering apartments that are obviously smaller, but they're more uniquely located. They tend to be on the piste because they're on staff. They don't come with a chauffeur, so guests can walk straight out and get onto the piste for a slightly more laid-back, flexible kind of service.
Good. One of the things I've noticed when I've looked at some of your properties and the site is that you make a big effort to be as environmentally friendly as possible, and that's obviously climate change was something that would affect the Alps and snowfall and warmer temperatures, shorter season, etc., etc. Tell me some details of what you try and get your guests to do, and indeed the owners and the people that manage your properties to do.
Absolutely. So this is something that it's obviously come to the forefront in everybody's lives. And for us, COVID allowed us a bit of time to focus on this because we were shut down for a whole winter. So we decided to use the time to actually focus on what we're doing and what actually we can change. I think there's a great perception at luxury travel. Well, it's impossible to change, it's bound to have a huge carbon footprint. Now, some of that is true, but we decided to focus on things we could change. So whilst we might not be able to predetermine our guests' mode of travel, for example, we can factor how the properties are run and how they're built, because we start to work with owners when they're building to bring on new properties. And so we can really put the baseline in of what we can impact and not just to give up and say it's not worth it. So we've really worked on the maintaining the electrical costs throughout the properties. So maintaining temperature control and lighting control, all of them can be controlled automatically. Lights aren't always left on, that sort of thing. And maintaining the temperature is a massive one. I mean, our properties consume a huge amount, but for example, having effective ways of managing the spas can reduce the consumption. So reducing consumption is a big thing. The standard of recycling and not having plastic in the properties, I think, comes as a norm now. One of our main focuses is being ready for electrical vehicles. So all our properties have now been fitted with e-chargers, those side of things. And as soon as a 4x4 multi-person carrier, which should be in the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, comes available, we will be the first to put those in our properties. And then just the standard things of offering meat-free days if guests choose. Again, the bespoke nature offers that. We see a lot of our guests opting for this anyway, as a matter of course. And then really the sourcing of our suppliers, making sure that they're sourced as locally as possible. So we haven't been importing stuff in from China, or for all our foods, can we get them from local resources, and even down to staff uniform, those sorts of things, sourcing them for sustainable suppliers has become a priority for us.
When you talk to clients, I mean, a lot of it must be done over the web, but do you make an issue? Do you make a virtue of this? With them, do you try and educate subtly that that we are this type of property, we are this type of company, and we would appreciate it if you adhered to these guidelines, so to speak?
No, we try not to prescribe to our guests. What we're seeing is the reverse: is that guests are coming to us saying, what are your policies, and we obviously steer them in the right direction. And I wouldn't say it's a tick list, but it's a question that's being asked by guests before they travel, that they would like to travel with a sustainable, or a company that's at least making an effort and doing the best that they can to reduce the footprint. That seems to be, it's a reverse thing. It's guests that are looking for it, and for most of them, they're expecting it as a standard. You expect to have Wi-Fi when you go to a property. The expectation is starting to be, especially amongst our clients, that they're expecting us to have put these things in place already, which is interesting. And also, additionally, not necessarily guests, but we're starting to see it from our staff. We have about 70, a team of 70 that go out to the Alps from across Europe to work in our properties, and it's a question from them, what are you as a company doing? It seems very important, especially to the generation of sort of 20 to 35, 40, that they want to work for a company that has that policies at the heart of their operations.
Do you have any specific goals as far as this is concerned, or is it just a perpetual monitoring of those standards? And if some new technology comes out that will reduce your carbon footprint, then you'll consider it and take it on?
Not really. Last winter was that, well, we made a commitment that we would actually measure our footprint, because it's lovely saying what are the things that you can do, and we're going to try and do our best. But if you're setting a target, which we have, you need to know how you're going to get there. So we worked with eCollective, which is a carbon travel specialist, who basically measured our footprint of what we do. So we know now what last winter was, last year. They've worked with us to set a target of 7% a year to be able to reduce that down. And so we worked with them and basically created a hit list of what is feasible within scope 1 and scope 2 to make the reductions to get us where we need to be. So we sat down, so we have the main targets for this winter. We'll be sitting down, and the main impact of that is in the properties, obviously, but also from the full-time team in looking at the way they travel and they get to the Alps and minimizing their footprint. So, it sounds such a long time away, but that's got to be, you've got to do it on a year-by-year basis, or it just seems like too big a challenge to actually get to where you want to be in, what is it, 2035 seems miles away, but you've got to do it every year, otherwise you just won't get there.
Do you get much assistance from local authorities, local tourist boards, anything like that, guidance from them with regard to more general tourism issues revolving around sustainability?
No, I mean, not specifically directed help from them. They all have, and we go to meetings and we know what they're doing as companies, because they are companies that run the resorts.
Sure.
They have their own targets and what they're doing to try and do that as a resort basis. It's been for a long time. Things like recycling and everything has been mandatory in France for a very long time, since when I was out living there, and that's done very easily and it's very accessible, and they make those sides of things easy. So, but for them, they're focusing it on a resort scale. It's down to the individual to be focusing on an individual property and what your commitment is.
And getting back to basics, this coming season of ski season, your occupancy very, very high, or are you still looking to fill up?
Well, it's higher than it would be at this time normally, but then what is normal? We've had some very funny years in the last 2 to 3, well, especially the last 2 years. Last year was a bumper season, although we still then had the wobble of the UK clients not being able to travel over Christmas and New Year. But this winter coming, we're 80% of where we want to be now. We would normally, that's a good 5 to 10% higher than at this point at the end of September. there's some of that, maybe the hangover. People didn't manage to travel last winter or didn't quite make it out. But there is just a desire that people want to get back and get their travel holiday, and especially their ski holidays, back on track.
Good. We wish you the very best of luck in all of these endeavours, and thank you for your time this morning.
No problem. Lovely to talk to you.
And you.